Welcome back to the Time for Heroes podcast. This week's guest is Alfie Jackson. Alfie Jackson was the lead singer in Naughty's band, the Holloways. We spoke about his early life growing up, how he got into music, how he met the band, and was managed by former guest of the podcast, Beans on Toast. We also spoke about the London scene, his career in the band, and then the breakup of the band as well, which the band went through some pretty hard times. We also touched on writing with other people and some of his solo material, and then at the end Alfie picked his heroes to come for a dinner party. Thanks very much for listening to the podcast, and I'll be back again with another one very soon.
Alfie Jackson, most famous for being in a Naughty's band, the Holloways. Thanks very much for coming on the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, yeah. I love the fact that it was called the Naughties, because it just made you feel cheeky, naughty rascals at the time, which we basically were. So it was the best named decade.
Yeah. What we do to start off with is I just kind of go back to the start of early life growing up, what you were like as a kid, how family life was, things like that. So just take it away from there, Alfie.
Well, born in Leeds, and my dad used to... My mum and dad split up when I was about 5 or 6 or something. And my dad used to take us on Saturdays, and he'd often take us to the cinema, the Lounge in Leeds it was. And one weekend, my brother was ill. He was 18 months older than me, Philip. So my dad just took me, and it was Back to the Future. And, the opening scene, got all the clocks ticking away, and then it just close-ups on Marty just turning all the knobs up on the amplifier, and then on the guitar as well, and then he's got the pick in his hand, and it catches the light. And I was just like, this is so cool. I was just like hooked straight away, and then he hit it and goes flying into the amp. And then later on, he's like playing Johnny B. Good and stuff. And just after the film, I was like, I've got to get a guitar. What was that song? My dad's a big rock and roll fan, rock and roll DJ, and so he got me educated into rock and roll off the back of hearing Johnny B. Good in that film. And then he got me an encore guitar from Argos, like I think they're about 25 quid, like a classical.
Yeah.
With nylon strings. So that's where I started. So when we moved from Leeds down to Melton Mowbray in Leicestershire when I was like 9, and then I sort of grew up mainly there till I went up to uni and then down to London. But it was a good place, Melton, and that's where I had my first band called Marvel. I was going to be a footballer up until the age of about 14, 15, and then until everyone started to want to have fights and putting people in wheelchairs and putting knives in their socks and driving cars around the pitch at half time. I was like, nah, I'm not having any more to do with this. And then I was working on a fruit and veg stall. One Saturday morning, I got a scar on my finger still. I had to cut a cucumber in half, and I just went straight through the cucumber and through my finger and went to the hospital, and the nurse said, you got to keep it clean, go home. And the chart show used to be on ITV on a Saturday, like at 11 or 12 or something.
Yeah.
And Oasis came on with Supersonic. And I was like, what is this? This band sounds so cool, looks so cool, this song's amazing. So I picked up my like crappy Encore acoustic that I'd had since I was younger and never really learned that much because I didn't have the right books or anything. But I just picked it up with a bandage around my finger and like figured out how to play Old MacDonald Had a Farm and Last of the Summer Wine just by ear, and realised you could play melodies on a guitar. I never thought of that before. I think it's because I did the do now in the Supersonic riff, and then I was just like, okay. Went into the school on the Monday. I was like, going to form a band. We're going to do it. We're going to form a band. I spoke to all the lads who had already been playing instruments for years. So you lot are forming a band, and none of them took me seriously. And then about a year later, we sold out the Charlotte in Leicester, which has since been torn down along with many other classic venues, unfortunately. That's kind of where it all started.
Right.
Yeah.
So, obviously you were in this band, Marvel. Any other bands, or what happened with you then going to London?
Any other bands? For me, no, it's just Marvel, and then I went to London because I did a media studies course. We took a year out to try and get Marvel like going properly, but didn't quite work out. So I ended up doing a media studies course, and then went down to London and worked at ITV for a couple of years.
What was the intention then with the media studies? Because I did a media studies course as well, and this is the first time I've actually used any of my media studies skills doing this podcast. 20 years down the line.
It's been very useful to me. I mean, off the back of GCSEs, my most influential teachers convinced me I should do economics, accounts, geography, and English, and that coincided with finding Oasis and falling in love for the first time with a girl, and just becoming completely distracted from the studying and being interested in balance sheets and profit loss margins and stuff, and supply side economics. We used to have this teacher in economics called Miss McHugh, and she always used to say, draw this thing on the whiteboard, G and T, like government expenditure makes the party go gin. G was the gin, government expenditure, and T was the tonic. And she was like, if you put more G in the party will go with the swing. If you put more tonic in, more taxation, then it won't go with so much swing. So that's about the only thing I can remember from economics. But I just failed massively. Just thought, all I need is a guitar. From once I started playing it and got the band going, nothing else interested me. I ended up getting put on report because my attendance and everything was really bad. So then we tried to do the band and it didn't quite work out. I thought, well, I need to do something creative. I have to be doing something creative because I just always have ideas for all sorts of stuff. And media studies seemed like the logical choice. And I really loved it, really enjoyed it and did really well. And got a job at ITV. So, one of the few people who actually ended up getting a job in the field in which they trained and studied. And it did look promising when I was at ITV to begin with. It was quite an open place where you could sort of move horizontally and you could have ideas, and it was a team effort. But as more of the ITV companies like Carlton, Granada and Yorkshire TV all merged, it became more compartmentalised. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And my job just became much more narrow and became really repetitive, and I just got frustrated. And the whole time in London, I was increasingly looking at NME for ads. I was a singer for another band for a while before the Holloways, actually. We did a couple of gigs. And actually played in it. We did actually do a gig in Nambucca just around the time I started meeting the Holloways lads. And then my time at ITV came to an end because they could see I wasn't interested. They offered me like a deal to sort of give me a few grand as a parting thanks. I wasn't sacked so much as we can see this isn't for you. And it was good of them, and it gave me a few months to sort of get myself and the band going, and then I just started going out in London. I just moved to Holloway as I lost my job there. It was a strange set of coincidences that led me to Holloway. And my mate who lived in Holloway was also worked at ITV. He put me up for a while because my girlfriend at the time, I was living with her and her parents, and they kicked me out. So I ended up in Holloway staying with him. And then we went down to the garage at the bottom of Holloway Road, and there was Dave and Jay, Dave being the drummer and Jay Beans on Toast, who was our manager. Yeah. We're DJing there, and we met some girls, and for some reason he said to this girl that my name was Alfred, which is the name of his granddad. My real name's David. Mm-hmm. I fell asleep at this party and woke up with everyone going, Alfie, Alfie, Alfie. Wake up, and I'm like, oh, Alfie, I'm Dave. No, he's Dave, the drummer of the Holloways to be. So that was how I met the Holloways guys and became Alfie. It's a really bizarre run of circumstances.
Yeah, because I've seen. I was looking up, searching you online, things like that over the last couple of months, and obviously on Wikipedia it says David Jackson. I thought that must be a mistake, because I've just always known you as Alfie. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so how long's that been then? That's been like
Yeah, well,
15, 20
that was
years.
2004. That was
Yeah.
2004. It was like I say, I'd just moved to Holloways, staying at this lad's house before I actually moved there because I was in West London, and yeah, just all these little weird coincidences. I became Alfie. You know, I started going to Nambucca because Dave and Jay were running Sensible Sundays. It's like an open mic sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I started going to that, and I didn't try to introduce myself as David or something, and everyone were like, "No, he's Alfie. That's Dave." So yeah, I gave up after a while. It's funny, I've always had nicknames. At school I was always Jacko. I've never been David, just to
Right.
teachers, parents and employees.
So, I mean, I've had Jay on the podcast as well. So we touched a bit about.
Yeah, I heard that one.
Yeah, we touched a bit about Nambucca and stuff like that. But obviously, we'll show the formation of the Holloways. Then, when did you get Bran and Rob?
Well, I was going out with a girl who's an actress, and there was she went to Mount View Theatre School, whatever it was, in Crouch End, and she had a show, and I went to see it, and Bryn was doing sound and lighting, and then there was a do at the pub afterwards in Crouch End, which is now a super drug. It was an all bar one. I think it was an all bar one, yeah. And I was just at the bar and just got chatting to the guy standing next to me at the bar. It turned out to be Bryn. And the funny thing was as well, I just got chatting to the guy at the bar in the garage was Tristan Iverme, who ended up producing a lot of Holloway stuff, a lot of Frank Turner stuff. Now manages the lottery winners. And yeah, just standing at the bar and chatting to the guy next to you leads to beautiful things because me and Bryn just like straight away hit it off. And I used to carry this little metal like cigarette holder around with me, but I didn't smoke. It just had these little mini self-printed flyers that I'd done saying wanted, I think it's like insanely dedicated musicians for melodious, raucous indie rock pop project. And I just used to like have that with me everywhere I went, just determined to find people. And I was like, gave him one. He's like, well, I used to play the guitar a bit. I was like, okay, you can play bass then. If you can play the guitar a bit, you can play the bass. Knowing sorts of bass players, but you know, you can transfer your knowledge, and if you practice, you can get good enough to, you know, being in an indie rock and roll band. So I was like, all right. I was like, you know, as long as you're up for it, that's the main thing. And my thing was always, as long as people have got the right attitude, that surpasses ability for me every day of the week. And you know, I was proven right with Bryn as a social character and as a just person who would mingle and his energy on stage. You know, he's never the world's greatest bass player, but good mate, reliable and focused and up for it, and it worked. So me and Bryn were the first members of the Holloways, and then we were sort of jamming with a few guitarists, trying to find the right person. And then we were in Nambucca one Sunday, one of the Sensible Sunday days, and this kid got on stage who looked like a young Bob Dylan and started playing and never stopped. Like basically couldn't get him off the stage. He just kept doing loads of Bob Dylan covers and other bits and bobs and a couple of his own ideas. And we were like, he's great. He's really cool. Got a great vibe about him. And the girls all fancied him a bit as well. So it's like, yeah, it's a good sign. So then we, afterwards, we got chatting to him around there was a little arcade machine in the corner near the toilets in Nambucca. It had like loads of old school arcade games on. And there's 1943 was the one me and Bryn used to play all the time. You just top down, shoot 'em up.
Mm-hmm.
World War II shoot 'em up, and we just used to play that all the time. So Rob was just like stood watching me and Bryn play that whilst talking about the plans for the band. And then the following Sunday, Dave let us use his room above Nambucca, me and Rob, to jam before going down to play Sensible Sunday. So me and Rob went up into Dave's room for an hour or two, showed each other our songs and ideas, and then we learned a few harmonies and riffs. And then we went down and played a few of his and a few of mine, and Dave was like, that was brilliant, you guys are amazing, there's such chemistry, I'll be the drummer. And then that was that. Then we had the lineup. And then a couple of months later, when the band really started to click and we started to get the real good songs together, Jay was like, I gotta be involved in this somehow. I can't bring anything to the band musically, so I'll be the manager. And off we went. And and Tristan then was a key part. I wanted Tristan to be in the band massively, as a keyboard player for us, because I liked the idea of being able to add something to the sound, which would have been quite mad if you think about the Holloways sound now. If there had been keys, it would have taken us in quite a different. But he was playing guitar for a band called Gill Kicker, but he was like our George Martin through all the early demos, the original release of Generator and Two Left Feet on vinyl that were released through Pure Groove, the original Happiness and Penniless, which had a vinyl B-side. Oh, I think it was What's the Difference? I think it might have been What's the Difference, one of Rob's.
The Happiness and Penniless, I think that's the one. I mind LimeWire. I used to get everything off of LimeWire, and Happiness and Penniless, the version that I got off of LimeWire, I was disappointed when the album came out. The album one seemed kind of slower.
Well, it was good, was it?
Yeah.
I'm the same.
I can't find it anywhere. Might be on like an old iPod somewhere, but I can't find a way playing it.
I think my dad has given me. I've got to have a sort of dig through my drawers and stuff, because I'm sure my dad's given me CDs with all our different demos on. I think there was 3 versions of Happiness and Penniless. There was one that we did with the original version of Most Lonely Face, which was an upbeat version of Lonely Face. It was like full on drums and down 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 down. It was like full tempo.
I had that one as well, man.
And then we did a version with Tristan, and then we did the album version. And I think the one we did with Tristan, the vinyl version, was better than the album version. It's a funny one.
Yeah, I think you get that a lot with bands. Obviously, all the stuff at the start, all the demos, especially the fans fall in love with them, and then they don't want to hear another version.
Yeah, I mean it's like you grow up with your mum's cooking, don't you? And then someone else makes you spaghetti bolognese or something, and it doesn't taste right.
Yeah, it's not
that
right.
Sort of thing. Once you've latched onto it and fallen in love with it, it's hard to then better it, isn't it?
Yeah, Nambucca at that time, obviously there was used kicking about, but there must have been just bands flying through there constantly. So what was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. We just used to go there pretty much every night of the week, and there would always be something good happening. There would always be a great band on, or an interesting night of some form. One of our mates, I think he would do a comedy night. I don't know if it's once a week or every few weeks or whatever. But it was just such a great place. And it was funny, because apart from Nambucca, up and down Holloway Road was mainly just sort of Irish mafia pubs with old boys in them. And, you had Camden, you had East London and everything, but Holloway Roads, there's quite I mean, all right, down you get down to Highbury Corner and stuff, you start getting a few things. But I'm trying to think of another area where one pub had such a profound effect on an area without other venues of the same scene being close by. It was such a little hub of activity, and it's just walking distance from us all the time, and upstairs and downstairs, upstairs afterwards, or even downstairs afterwards, the lock-ins. I wasn't one of the hardcores. It was interesting. I can't remember who I was watching recently on a YouTube chat, but someone was saying, you talk about rock and roll and everything, but you will find quite often the sort of the singers in the bands and stuff are often the ones bed home earliest. I mean, I had if I didn't, I just lose my voice. I mean, I'd end up on tour, you know, you're drinking and you're partying every night, and you're shaving off like half a note of your range every night. And by the end of the tour, you're just like, ah. You don't end up speaking like Jay Beans on toast, because he didn't go to bed early, you know. You know what his voice is like. He would thoroughly burn the candle. You know, but it works for him. But singing our songs, you know, like trying to sing dance floor, I'll stand on the dance floor up there, it's just like, nah. It got to some gigs and it's like spitting blood on the microphone trying to sing the songs if you've been partying too much. So I had to be careful.
So with Nambucca, could you kind of, if you didn't have a gig on, could you basically just get in there and say, look, I want to play, and there's always a chance of getting a gig in there?
Our first ever gig was, we just basically invited ourselves onto the bill because we were rehearsing down at where we used to rehearse, doesn't matter. We were on the way back, and Gemma, the drummer from the original drummer in Shambles, who you interviewed recently, called Dave and said Baby Shambles have been kicked off the Hammersmith like festival thing that was happening there because they were late or whatever. Like all these fans wanting to see him. Can we come and play at Nambucca? And as soon as he got off the phone, I was like, well, we're supporting then. I was like, so we're not ready, we've only done a few rehearsals. I was like, yeah, we are. Come on, bollocks to that. Let's just do it. And
so that was your first gig?
Yeah, Dave was so nervous about doing it. And it was funny because I think they had their stuff set up on the stage, so we just played. I think we sort of played just in front of the stage, and the stage used to be tiny in Nambucca before they expanded it. So it was like me, Bryn, and Rob were on the floor, and Dave was basically on a riser. He was on the stage, but we were the same level as the crowd, and it was packed. So you just got people 3 feet in front of your face, on the same level as you. As your first gig, absolutely rammed, sweating like nobody's business. I don't even know if they were still smoking at that point, 2004, I think there might have been.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think it was about 2007 that came in, was it not?
Yeah, because I remember we did a gig in Ireland, in Dublin, which was still in one of my top 4 or 5 gigs, tiny pub in Ireland, went mental. But I remember going over there and thinking, it was weird because they'd already had the smoking ban in place. So yeah, it was definitely still smoking. So yeah, it was just this sweaty, smoky, you know, anticipated, pissed up atmosphere of Baby Shambles fans, and we just absolutely went for it, and it went absolutely mental. Like, and I always remember as well, there was this Swedish girl who was part of our scene. She just like ran across the front of us as we were playing and just like flashed the boobs at us. It's just one of those things that just sticks in your head. First ever gig experience, just stays with you. Never forget a face or a pair of boobs.
The gigs are always the most enjoyable though. See, like with the fans level with the stage, I've seen one of your pals, Larrick and Love, I've seen them at the garage in Glasgow, and that was the same thing. I mean, I was pissed on the life out of them at the end, saying they were like the Libertines with violins.
Yeah, they were great.
Obviously, like around about that time in Nambucca, obviously Jay was there, Frank Turner and all that, they would all be coming up at that point as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one with Frank, because we took him on tour as support because he was one of our mates, and now he's like absolutely huge. But it was a good mate of ours, especially Dave's. Frank used to come and play the Sensible Sundays quite often, and I always remember he used to cover Dancing Queen by ABBA. I just said, this is really funny that he's covering Dancing Queen. I always remember being upstairs in one of the bathrooms upstairs where Jay and Dave lived, and Tree, who was our tour manager, and the infamous Tom Frog, and Kid Harpoon. There's so many people up there.
Yeah.
And we were just like having a jam in the bathroom. Just me, Rob, and Frank were in there, and he was like showing me some of his early tunes that got onto his first album, and I was like showing him some of the ideas that got onto our first album. And I remember I had this idea for Two Left Feet. I had sort of the lyrics and this can't really dance, but baby when you dance with me idea. And Rob had this dun 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 riff.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this bit like, where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna go at the end of the night? And it just fit perfectly. So we just like, with Frank sort of in the room with us, sort of stuck them together. And then I went into Dave's bedroom. I was like playing it to him. I was like, yeah, we just stuck this together. And he's like, oh, maybe you should change the lyrics just to make it a bit more, I don't know, real about the way we live and stuff. Because I remember I had some really quirky lines like, let's have a dance and take a trip to France and have a drink of English tea was one of the original lyrics in Two Left Feet. And yeah, Dave was very good at like suggesting. So is Bryn, saying what's working and what's not working in the stuff me and Rob came up with.
Right.
But I just always remember that night with Frank, when Two Left Feet came together in a dirty little bathroom.
So does Frank get a credit for that on the album? No.
No, I mean Frank was just didn't really do anything writing wise. We were just sort of playing each other stuff. But Holloways, we if Dave or Bryn had sort of made some suggestions and stuff, then we would always sort of give 10-15% if someone had like made some suggestions. That we always sort of tried to reflect who contributed what. But what we did do was said, whilst we're all mates and the band is a band and together we share all the royalties equally. That's what we did. And then we said if we end up parting ways, then whoever has written what takes their fair cut. And my argument for that was I was absolutely skint, staying at home quite often on nights when everyone was out partying, just working my ass off on songs and not having any money and just eating on milk and bread. I was basically toast and cereals most of the time. That's milk and bread line from Happiness and Penniless. And I was like, today, it was like, you're making an absolute fortune doing Frog and Nambuka and all this. That's what you're putting your time into, and you're earning from it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm putting my time into, so I want to earn from what I'm putting my work into. I'm not getting anything from your work. So, but I said, while the band's together, let's just split everything equally, and hopefully we'll stay together forever. But I said otherwise, if the band does fall apart, then afterwards, what my options might be limited. So,
yeah,
and the few £100 here and there that come through years later have been helpful in some of the dry years, shall we say, since the Holloways. I'm now a signed songwriter again, but there were a few years where things were pretty tight.
Yeah, pretty balm. Going back then to the debut album, which I'd like you touched a bit on the lyrics and things like that, because I think the thing that comes across in the album is it's like social commentary. See the way everybody talked about the first Arctic Monkeys album, that was like kind of social commentary, what was going on in Britain at the time. But I think these were pretty much the same, but obviously with a different sound. No trying to lump you into the same box as Arctic Monkeys in any way, but definitely the social commentary came across, which I loved personally.
Yeah, I mean I think that's why people connected with it. It's very honest. You can only write about sort of what you know, can't you? So that's all it was really. And I remember there was a few sort of magazine reviews at the time in like Art Rocker and things like that. And I always remember there's one line that closed one review of us saying, "London, these are your Arctic Monkeys, cherish them." It was something like that.
Right.
But you know, we'd written our songs having never heard the Arctic Monkeys, but can absolutely see the parallels. It is a really similar sort of way of songwriting and delivering lyrics and energy melodically. There were a lot of parallels. You know, I think so many bands had been born out of the sort of Strokes, Libertines, Explosion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think those two bands created an excitement that was the spark which, you know, set off all the fireworks in the noughties. So there was going to be a lot of bands sounding similar-ish, weren't there, in terms of sound and vibe. So, yeah.
Yeah, because we were going away on holiday. Me and all my mates. We were all going away for the weekend, and my wife was driving, and I think we had the kids, and we took one of my pals, and I put your album on, and he'd never heard it before. It'd only been maybe 2 or 3 months, and he still says to me now, that's like the greatest album that I've ever let him hear.
Well, that's high praise. It's nice to hear things like that. Yeah, it's a funny one. I remember my parents put it on in their motorhome a few years ago, and I hadn't heard it in years, and it was just mental hearing it, like almost with fresh ears, as a stranger to it, as if I hadn't had anything to do with it, and just kind of hearing it objectively in a way, and just thinking, you know what, it really was. These songs were great.
Yeah, there's no a bad song on it. It goes through really fast because it's so upbeat and enjoyable. And this is the thing, like a lot of the subject matter can be pretty sad, but it's kind of played in an upbeat manner. So you're dancing a bit. You don't realise that you're dancing a bit to like a really sad song.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was sort of bittersweet, but it was always tinged with a hope and a trying to have a positive spin, and you know, let's try and enjoy it anyway.
Yeah. So obviously, round about this time, then things started kind of unraveling a bit, didn't they?
Could say that, yeah.
Which is a big shame because after that album, you were kind of flying, and then obviously, so what happened with the record company?
It was just, I mean, we had a lot of luck on the way up, and then a lot of bad luck on the way down. You know, I think we went up the most pointy mountain you could think of, really. You know, as soon as we got to the top, it was like a sheer drop off the other side.
Yeah.
We were 2007, like second stage at Glastonbury, second most played song on Radio 1. Reviews in the enemy saying this time next year, biggest band in the world and stuff like this. And you're just thinking, this is it. Life sorted, you know, dreams sorted. We're going to be making music and playing great gigs forever, and we're going to be like the Stones and stuff. And then 2008, someone just put a massive cloud of shit falling bollocks on us, and I mean, it just all sort of started to happen at the same time. We were down at Sawmills in February 2008, and that's where Oasis, Supergrass, Muse, I think, had all done their debuts. And you know, in the Supergrass, in the second album sleeve, there was this round window, and they were all sat in this round window in the album sleeve. Remember album sleeves? You want to know what they are, kids? And when I saw that round window, it was like, it was next to this pool table in the living area, and in my head I'd always seen it as this like thing in the corridor where all different little drum rooms were and stuff, and it was just bizarre to see this round window where Gaz Coombs and the Goffey and Mickey had all sat, and it was mental, but it was just like a dream, you know. We're here. The woman who owned it telling us stories about when she had to give Liam a slap a couple of times when they were there, and in the first week or so it's just like, yes, cloud nine, everything's going great, and then about in the space of 10 days, we got the call that the label had gone bust because Pitbull, who was on the same label as us, there was a load of crunk artists on our label for some reason, TVT. Pitbull had released some material with another label. TVT had sued, won all this money, invested this money. There was an appeal from the other label. TVT was supposed to give that money back, didn't have that money anymore. Went bankrupt, went into liquidation. All bands as assets became frozen. And we were there halfway through a month's residency staying at Sawmills. And we was like, what? This is bollocks. So then we ended up sort of, I think, paying for the rest of the recording out of previous advance. And we were still waiting on the money to come through on the second advance. And then also, like a couple of days later, my girlfriend's dad died, and then a couple of days later, my auntie, who's my godmother, she had this really bad fall in John Lewis' apartment store. She had osteoporosis and just like shattered so many bones and stuff, and was never left her house again after that. And those things all happened while we were there down in Sawmills. It's like, what the is going on? And then all through 2008, after that, it was really a hard time for me personally. My girlfriend and her dad had died. It, switched things up massively for me personally. And then as a band, we were frozen. We'd made this album, and we had all this momentum, and then we couldn't release anything. And we were talking to labels like Sony and stuff, and they're all saying, yeah, we really love this album, but we're not getting involved with this case with TVT because they said, dealing with them in this situation, and the guy, Steve Gottlieb, was apparently really hard to deal with anyway, the owner of TVT, quite a hard businessman. So it got to like later in the year, like autumn, winter time, and then we're all really frustrated. So Rob wanted to do stuff, so he started doing his other band, Musical Differences, Rob Skipper and the Musical Differences, and that created a lot of friction. For me, always been insanely dedicated. You can ask the Marvel Boys what I used to be like in my first band. I was a very sort of strict band before anything. If my mates had a wedding or someone had a birthday, if we had a gig, then there's no chance I was going to, even if it was one of my best mates, unless quite a few weddings. Now we've got a gig. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Because if you got multiply 4 members by every sort of personal thing that can come up in your life, that's going to give you. Yeah,
you'd never play a gig.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone else in the band has to prioritise it. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So I became quite annoyed, and it created a bit of friction. And
was it just you feeling like that? How was how did Brian and Dave feel about it?
Well, Bryn was with me. Dave, very easygoing guy, very sort of understanding guy. Was saying, we have to give Rob a bit more support in what he's doing. Whereas I was like, bollocks to that, he should be putting his efforts into helping us turn this around. So that's how that went. And then, a couple of months later, we've got all our gear and recordings and stuff down in the basement of Nambucca. And then there's the fire, so we lose all 2 drum kits, God knows how many amps, my old guitar that I'd had for years, loads of other guitars, nothing insured. It's just like, for fuck's sake.
I read somewhere it was like about 20,000's worth of gear and that.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
But I mean, it's more than that, innit? Because at that point you're kind of thinking the band's gone, aren't you? So It's
Yeah, it was
nearly.
just unbelievable. And we sort of then tried to get another manager in sort of to help us as well. He sort of kind of muscled in a bit. He was saying, Jay should be doing this, Jay should be doing that. Jay said in his interview himself, he perhaps wasn't the best person for us to have once it got to a certain level. He was brilliant at sort of getting the vibe going early doors, but in terms of business acumen and experience of dealing with labels, contracts, and whatnot, he simply didn't have the experience. So this guy sort of came in and had all these ideas and energy and suggestions, and it made sense. So he went in alongside Jay, and it did make a difference with the people who took over us, which was the Orchard, and managed to get us sort of some better things moving. But then, like a few weeks down the line, so he was like, I'm just helping out. And then the next thing we know, our accountant, when we're speaking to our accountants, it's like, yeah, I just paid like $5,000 or something like this to, I can't remember how much it was, to this guy who's been co-managing. And like, what? We didn't. There's no discussion about that. He just said he was just helping us out. And then when we tried to say, what's going on? You said you're helping out, and now suddenly we're like a load of grand out of pocket, and we're all skint because we didn't get the next advance through. And then he like fell out with us. So then we were sort of managerless, Robless, Daveless. It was just me and Bryn.
But the album was recorded, wasn't it?
Yeah, the album was recorded February 2008, and then this is now. Now we're talking. This is by the point this happened. It's like February. This is like a year later.
Right. So obviously, the way you're feeling with all that, with everything that's happened, is it kind of just a drive to kind of get the album out? Is it like you need to get the album out for your own kind of sanity?
Yeah, that and loads of reasons. Like otherwise, it's a waste. And the only thing I wanted to do since I picked up the guitar as a teenager was put music out. So to me, it was a no-brainer. We've got to get this album out and we've got to tour it. So I ended up finding new members, and we knew this other guy who ended up being our manager. So we did sort of end up getting some kind of semblance of normality back together, but after a year,
you lose a lot of momentum, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean it's more than a year really, because you go from when This Is Great Britain was released. Well, we were hoping to get the second album out sort of summer 2008. And then it was a long time down the road in 2009 before we were actually able to get it out. Because by that point, Rob wasn't in the band anymore. So we thought, well, got all these songs that Rob sung on the album. We're not going to be able to do them live. So then we had to write some more and record that and sort of get it all in place. And then this is like everything sort of happening 18 months later than planned.
Yeah.
We just lost all the momentum. And I think it was a good album. By the time it came out, the scene had changed quite a lot. Radio had changed quite a lot, and just the feeling of being the Holloways obviously wasn't the same after everything that had happened, and not having the same people. But it just seemed like the lesser of two bad options. Try and start something completely from scratch, but this felt like the least bad option.
Well, this is a thing, because it is a good album. It's got some cracking songs on it. Again, Sinners and Winners were one. That's a cracker. But I don't know where I'm going with that now. It must have just been so hard, kind of mentally, for you to carry on and put that out. And the thing with it is, at the time, I didn't know about all these struggles. You just, as a fan, all you see is a band releasing an album, and then couple of years down the line releasing another album, the fans don't always realise what's happening in between. So, like, it must be harder for you knowing what's went between that, and then we just kind of find it years down the line.
It was really hard, and you know, it was still fun with the new boys. You know, I can play to 3 people in a pub and enjoy it.
Yeah.
I always will enjoy playing music live. So you know, it was still fun. It was good to get it out, and I'm glad that we did. It's just such a shame, you know. I go on Spotify or something like that now, or anywhere, and I see the Wombats with so many plays, and see how well Frank's done, and bands like you know, the Pigeons went on and did well, and Cortinas, you know, all these bands who we played with, who, you know, great bands and great lads, really happy they did well, but never ever thought these bands are better than us and they're going to have much better careers than us. I thought we were on the same trajectory, and you know, you see what they've done, and that's what I thought we were going to do, and it does, you know, break the heart a little bit seeing that. No, you're not, because I'm glad that they've done well. I'm really happy for them, but it's just sad that we.
Yeah, but obviously, all being well, if you didn't have all the circumstances, then you should probably be in the same place, and
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Your music would have evolved with the time.
Definitely.
So obviously, how is the relationship with band members now? Obviously, Rob no longer with us, obviously, but
well, that's also the big thing, you know. I was just thinking, I was about to say, you know, Rob would hopefully still be with us had everything carried on going well, because probably one of the things that led him to seek other means of feeling good and being creative was because of the downward trajectory. You know, he did pretty well with his like hairs and musical differences and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were really good bands, but it's always going to be hard to get a new band up to the same trajectory as something that's done well, isn't it? So you know, you can't help but think he'd still be with us.
Yeah,
it'd be great. And I think I worked so well alongside Rob as a writer. I think we brought out the best in each other in a sort of competitive. You know, I think there always is in bands where there's two creative forces. I think you push each other as well as encourage each other. I think it's helping each other, but you also trying to outdo each other a little bit as well.
Yeah,
I think
there's nothing bad about healthy competition.
Nah, and I think it'd been really fascinating to see where we'd have pushed each other to as creative forces. So that's the saddest thing, you know. And there's already a lot of sad things there.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough time. Obviously, now you're writing, aren't you? And you've done some solo stuff as well. I seen you release some stuff in 2017. You released a single, which
I released a few bits and bobs. I did one for that boy who was photographed in the red T-shirt, who was washed upon the beach from the Syrian boy, and you know, really, I put weeks of work into recording and producing and making the video, and spoke to his auntie to see if she was cool with it, and spoke to loads of different charities and got War Child involved with it and everything, and really, really put my heart and soul into it, and it just didn't do much. You know, NME had it on their homepage for a day, like, is this the most heartbreaking Christmas song? So I put it out at Christmas time, and yeah, it just didn't catch, just didn't like spark or anything, and that was quite a kick in the teeth. And then I did like, I guess that's Love These Days, and Best Be On My Way, and If I Could Be an Astronaut. There's a few songs.
Yeah, you can get them on Spotify, can't you? Because that's
Yeah.
just, I mean, I only heard the one about the Syrian boy a couple of months ago.
Yeah. The Last Holiday, that one.
It's never come into my stratosphere until then, but I think it's a brilliant song. It sounds,
Thanks.
it's like you still get the kind of Holloways sound, but obviously,
Yeah, there's an element of
slower.
that in there. Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's kind of hard not to, isn't it? It's like it's my voice.
Yeah,
It's always and my writing style. Even though writing for others now, writing every sort of genre is like dance music, folk, country, pop, do sort of everything. But whenever it comes to sort of me singing on something, it's always going to have a little bit of that. But yeah, musically it does have a bit as well. But yeah, I'm working on stuff now. So I've just built a house and I've got a studio, which I'm in right now, and I've got sound treatment and decent mics and decent guitars and stuff, and learnt a lot writing with other artists and other writers and producers over the last few years.
How does that work then? The writing for other artists. How do you kind of how does that take off? How do you kind of?
Well, it's a mixture of myself seeking new bands because I used to put a lot of nights on in London as a promoter, at Jay and Dave's pub, for example. So I'd find acts that way, but also my publishers set me up with up and coming artists, and then I just do loads of like chatting to people on social media if I think if they're talented. And over the last year, it's all been 18 months or whatever. It's all been done on Zoom, and normally you would just get in a studio yourself, the artist, and a producer normally, and then you just sit down, three strangers, and open your hearts and bare your soul and write a song, which sounds like quite a bizarre thing, but what you find very quickly with people in music, we're all very much cut from the same cloth, and once you let your guard down, you all click very quickly, and it's brilliant. I love it. I mean, I always loved writing as much as playing live, which most people don't. But for me, writing has always been a really magical thing. That I'm writing something at the moment called Why, and it's just like this whimsical look at the world, and the things that are going on, the small things, like flowers trying to fight their way through a cracked pavement, and to the Black Lives Matter thing, and just the whole juxtaposition of the beauty and the sadness that's in the world at the moment, and then this chorus line why, and just this happens quite often over the years when you're writing a song and you find the right bit and you hit it, and the right word and melody comes out at the moment, and you just get this feeling. It's just magic. It's like the hairs.
Yeah.
It's like when you hear a song that blows you away. It's when you're writing it, it's the same feeling. So doing that and being able to do that with other people on a regular basis, and like I say, learning and writing songs that you wouldn't be able to write on your own, and writing songs that you can't write for yourself because they don't suit your voice and your style. And it's so great when you've got these ideas. Like I come up with these mad little R&B like lyrics and melodies, and I'm like, this is an R&B pop song. Like I can't do it, but these things just come to me, and it's just great to have channels for them to flow into. So I'm so happy that I'm doing this now, and despite everything that's happened, I'm grateful for where I am now, because it's where I want to be. I mean, I do want to sort of get out and tour again and tour an album again and everything. That is an itch that will always be there as well. But doing this was always something I wanted to. Even in the Holloways, I remember having songs and thinking it'd be great if I could do something with these other ideas I get. 'Cause they're not Holloways.
It must drive you mad having songs in your head that that wouldn't be suited to the band or whatever. So if there's some way of getting them out some other avenue, then it's definitely the way to go with it. It seems to be a thing, like there's a lot of artists do it now, isn't there? It's no that you'd be surprised
it's become it's become quite the norm, yeah, to do co-writing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. It's really good just for networking as well. It's a really healthy thing to be doing. But it's funny you said about the songs for the band and stuff, because I have actually got a couple that are potentially going to be new Holloways material. Because we were supposed to do a tour last year, and then this stupid fucking virus came along, put paid to that, and then we were supposed to do some festivals this year, and again, Corona intervened. But we're looking at doing a tour. So I think we're talking about February.
Right.
And Dave was supposed to be playing with us for the first time since 2008. So that was such an exciting thought. And our mate Sam McCarthy and Tristan, who I used to live with, Sam, he was in the band with Tristan, and it was just going to be all the lads back together, basically, Rob aside, but as close as we could possibly get. I was so excited to be playing with Dave again. But the fact that we were talking about tours and stuff, and I've got these songs, and I'm just like, well, why not new material to go with it?
Yeah, that sounds excellent, man. That's something that I've been into anyway.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I would hope there's a lot of people who are still fond of the Holloways would be excited if there was some new stuff.
I think you're kind of one of the cult bands that kind of people the way I see it, he's kind of ended too soon, and obviously with the circumstances behind that, but there's still kind of room for the Holloways somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's still, there's a lot of bands who've come back and got going again, and yeah, who knows where it might go.
Yeah.
But I'm also massively excited about the solo stuff I've been putting together. It's, I mean, some of it does have the Holloways sort of social commentary, and there is some sort of electric guitar sort of vibes, but on the whole, it's quite a bit more mature. It's got often piano and strings, and also I don't know, go a bit electro with some of the production as well. It feels like these days you can really mix things up. You don't have to. It doesn't feel like artists are really so penned in as to what they used to be. It feels much more open now, and I think listeners as well are a lot more open. It used to be like, this is my thing, but now everyone sort of seems to listen to a bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean that the girl you told me about, Gemma Rogers, that I would never have listened to that. I'd never again, that would never have come into my world if you hadn't told me about her. It's brilliant, man. I've been listening to her the last week, man. Love it.
She's great, isn't she?
Yeah. So
which songs have you heard?
It's just the Good Day Bad Trip and Rabbit Hole just came out. That I like the kind of instrumentals as well. I was going to see if you would let me use it on the podcast, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I'm speaking to her next month. I'm getting her on the show, so.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. She is with a label, so I don't know if there would be a conversation needed to be had in terms of usage on that side. Yeah, maybe shoot an email to her and to me, because my publishers might have to okay it, because it's my share as well.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, shoot an email over, but
no, it's cracking stuff. You can hear your sound in it as well, but she sounds like that Good Day Bad Trip. She sounds like it sounded like 3 different female artists. It sounded a bit like Laura Marlin at one point, and then there's a bit where it sounds like I don't know who it is. It's like one of them Manchester kind of 90s girl bands or something like that. St. Etienne or something like that. There's different elements in it. I really loved that one.
Yeah, I mean, I love that stuff that I've done with Gemma. The album is going to be great. She's a real talent. She's a real character. You'll have a good chat with her. And she really brings out some great writing from me. She's brilliant to write with, lyrically and visually. When I'm writing with her, she talks so much and creates this like tapestry around you in your head as you're writing, and then that allows me to just then sort of like start pinning things to the things she's created around it. It works really well. I mean, we've done this thing as well called Tale of Two. I don't know if you've heard any of that yet.
No.
It's me and her together. It's like a dark folk thing. We did 4 singles.
I'll have a look for that.
Check it out, man. It's really good. It's really good stuff. And then the Gemma Rogers solo stuff is it's funny. The Tale of Two stuff is like black and white, and the Gemma Rogers stuff is like Technicolor rainbow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll check that out because I'll put all this in the episode notes as well for the listeners. They can check it out as well. So that's us. Basically, at the end, all we need to do now is for you to pick your heroes to come for dinner. So,
how many was it again?
It's meant to be 4, but I mean, some folk just... Gemma Clark, she picked about 15. Couldn't get her to shut up at the end of it. So just kind of... It's just basically you kind of touching on who's kind of maybe influenced you or inspired you in some way. So, yeah, so just a few heroes and then what you're going to cook them for dinner. And don't say that you're not a good cook, because I've seen one of your pictures on Facebook and it's you stoning at a saucepan. So,
yeah, I like cooking. You know, I think there's something very therapeutic about it.
Yeah.
I love cooking. I love eating more. Yeah, it's so hard, man. I mean, some part of me, in terms of having an interest in dinner, is perhaps not heroes. You know, I'd kind of like to surround Hitler with like Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and I'd just like sit back and see how that would go. But so I like to. I mean, I know I've ranted on like nobody's business today, but the Holloways and my music sort of story is such a rich one. I sort of start going on about it, and my mouth just like goes into overdrive. So apologies if I've been a bit verbal diarrhea at times.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
But in terms of heroes, I mean, I'd have to have John Lennon. I know you and Jay hit upon John Lennon at one point about, you know, there are sort of rumours of him having a sort of an edge to him, but you know, I try not to judge people too harshly. You know, the circumstances that lead people to what they are, not justifying anything, but you know, I often say, you know, people who do bad things or say bad things doesn't mean the good things and the good things they say and do doesn't outweigh. You know what I mean? You judge people on a balance, and just, you know, just purely him as a musician and a writer and a singer and a soul. You know, you just need to look at Imagine to see that he wanted good for the world, and you know, Imagine sort of resonates with me. That's basically the core of what I sort of feel in my heart and bones.
Yeah.
And I always try and get that through in a lot of the stuff I write. And just to sort of be able to talk about the Hamburg times and how it all got going, I think it'd just be fascinating hearing it from the horse's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I respect Paul just as much as a writer. You know, perhaps he's an even better writer than John was, you could argue. But I think John as a character and his backstory would be very interesting. And then I think I'd have to have Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
Obvious reasons, you know, just the colours he brought into not just music, culture as a whole. You know, he's just there's no one like him. Producer as well. You know, the fact that he was sort of involved with Iggy Pop and Lou Reed and everything. It's just unbelievable the range of areas
the
he
different
covered.
characters that he's kind of portrayed
That
himself as well.
Yeah, I mean, just an absolute chameleon, cultural chameleon. And, you know, could have a word with him about his codpiece in Labyrinth as well. I think because, oh man, it's so hard. Smashing Pumpkins are probably my favourite band of all time. Siamese Dream is probably my favourite album of all time.
Right.
Billy Corgan's an interesting one, isn't he? I know he was a massive control freak with the band and ended up re-recording their parts and stuff. And now owns like a wrestling company and stuff. Would he be there? I think Billy Corgan might have to be there just because it's all judging on the people who've made the songs I love the most.
It's your heroes. It's who you hold in high regard.
Who would my final one be? I think it'd have to be Dylan. I know these are all, especially Bowie, Lennon, Dylan. They're all really obvious, but they're obvious for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, wordplay is something that's a massive part of my writing, and just the way he delivers a song, because the lyrics he's written are so good and he believes in it so much. I read his book. It's a really good read as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just because talking to these guys about songwriting and about what's inspired them to make these songs and how they got them from inception to production, I think would just be fascinating hearing that all go around in a circle. I think it could be pretty amazing. So yeah, be those four.
That's good choices. My dog, I named my dog after Bob Dylan.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was it Dylan or Bob?
He's Dylan. He's Dylan. Well, he wasn't meant to be Dylan. He was meant to be Hendrix, but my wife wouldn't let me. So I said, well, if it's no Hendrix, it's Dylan.
Good choice.
Yeah. They're brilliant choices, Alfie, man, or Dave. What do you get called in normal life? You just get called Alfie all the time?
Yeah, pretty much everyone. It's only family that calls me David. So yeah, stay with Alfie.
Cool.
And what would I cook? I mean, my favourite meal in the world is, having grown up in Leeds, is fish and chips. I just, you know, the taste takes me back to being at my grandma's on a Saturday. Before my dad would take us to the lounge cinema. So it's just a magical thing. The way it's cooked in Leeds in batter. They don't do that in other places. They cook it in oil and it's not the same.
Right.
But
that's
having seen
classic,
that Seaspiracy say again.
Classic though, like 4 classic guests and then just a nice easy meal, fish and chips.
I mean, there's a slight reservation with that, having seen that Seaspiracy documentary. But I have seen sort of voices and articles saying, you know, some of it is not true. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
It's a really good watch, just talking about, you know, the way the oceans have been treated. A real eye-opener, and it's like, oh my God, I can never have fish and chips again. But, you know, it's a fantasy meal in an idealistic world where everything's all right and people can come back from the dead. So hopefully the fish can as well. So it's fish and chips.
That's brilliant, man. That's a brilliant way to end it. Just one thing, actually, before we go. Just, obviously, you're in Austria, aren't you? How did that come about?
My girlfriend is Austrian. She was working in London, and we met and sort of fell in love. And she was like, "London's too expensive. I'm going back to Austria." And then I was like, "All right, I'll go with you." And it's beautiful here, man. Really, really am happy. I mean, obviously, I miss the sort of buzz of being able to go to gigs in London and stuff and meet people and mingle and have great conversations over a few beers. in a pub and that sort of vibe and stuff. But I mean, everyone else has been missing out on that in the last year or so anyway. But you know, I have been until Corona getting over to the UK sort of every couple of months, and I usually stay for a good sort of 3 or 4 weeks for doing writing, and I will get out and about, and you actually end up appreciating it a lot more.
Because what's life like? Is it kind of slower pace over there?
Oh yeah, mate. I'm like, I can't throw a stone to the next house.
Right.
I'm just like looking out the window now, and it's just green trees and hillside in the distance. I mean, the view out the back here, we see a couple of rooftops, but it's basically almost just purely untouched. And yeah, there's a small town nearby, and you know, there's a little bit of music. I've got a little sort of band going. We do some sort of covers gigs and stuff. And I've taken up tennis out here. I just used to play football as a kid. Couldn't afford to play tennis, but started playing tennis out here. But just drives me mad. Mainly, I'm just like screaming, "For fuck's sake!" on the court, every sort of few minutes, because it's just infuriating. I run about like no one's business, and every time you think you've mastered a technique, you just start cocking it up again. It just winds you up, but keeps me fit. And it's a good sort of little social thing. I've got, you know, a bunch of mates through playing tennis, a bunch of lads, and we get beers and stuff afterwards.
And that sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it's a very different sort of lifestyle to living in the thick of North London. Yeah, it's nice, man. You know, it's just stress-free, and it's funny. I remember the first time I went back to London after I moved here. I've been here for a few months. It's the longest I've been out of London for, aside from maybe touring. But you know, you're still sort of in cities in England and stuff. And I just, you know, I got over to London, and I was on the London bus, and this like girl just like stepped on the bus and just started going, "Oh, wait, does this bus go like?" And it's just like rude talk to the bus driver, and then like he gave her like directions and stuff, and she didn't even say thanks, and just like right, and just like stormed off the bus again. And you're just like, oh my god, I don't miss that.
Yeah,
it's quite a shock to the city. It was like when I first moved to London. I remember it took me a few months to acclimatise. I ended up getting home from work and doing like 20 press-ups as soon as I walked through the door, because I was just so like shaken up by this intense like madness in London, which I hadn't been used to. I'd grown up in a smaller town. Yes, it's a funny one, man. You do sort of, unfortunately, sort of grow this thick skin and get used to it, and it sort of stops bothering you after a while. But I mean, I tried to remain. Well, I didn't try. It's just the way I've been brought up, to be polite and friendly, and if someone is like older or pregnant or anything like that, you know, you're trying to help them and you let them first. But there's a lot of it. It's just me, which is, you know.
Yeah, I think the thing is with somewhere like London, it's kind of the same in Glasgow, but to a lesser extent. But kind of people are that focused on what they've to do. They don't even see other people. So
that's it.
And that's kind of, when you look at that as just a way of life, it's really sad. I'd much prefer to be staying in Austria and looking at it.
Yeah, and I mean, the way of life here, the way people are, like everyone is super friendly. Everyone's got time for each other. People are helping out all the time. Like, everyone's always helping each other out. If with building work or whatever, anything that's going on, it's a really great community spirit, which I love, because that's kind of what I more grew up with. So I love that about here. Like I say, I mean, there are the positive elements of the hustle and bustle and gigs and stuff, which I miss dearly. But once everything starts settling back to normality a little bit, and I can start coming over without the stress of, am I going to be able to get back into Austria and stuff? That's the worry for me at the moment. You know, what if the rules change? What if it's just a massive stress? I haven't been back to the UK since I was over Christmas 2019, and I hadn't seen my family in all that time.
Yeah, that must be a bit a worry.
But yeah, it's bollocks, man.
Yeah. Thanks very much, by the way, for taking the time out today. It's been brilliant to speak to you.
Thanks for having me, man. Enjoyed it. It's always a pleasure to talk about it.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Time for Heroes podcast. If you would like to get in touch, the best way is on the Facebook page, Time for Heroes podcast, or on Instagram at Time for Heroes podcast, or Twitter at Time for Heroes P1, or drop me an email at timeforheroespod@gmail.com. You'll find Time for Heroes on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google and Amazon. Please leave a review where you can, share with others, and more importantly, enjoy.